The next problem that Charlie wants us to fix in one of his used cars is this cracked windshield. Right now we're looking at the inside of the windshield, and for the most part the picture looks fine, but we notice that there's this line that's interrupting the rest of the landscape here. One tool that I like to use for something that is continuously interrupting a picture is the stamp tool. The stamp tool is over here. It's actually called the clone stamp tool. And what it does is it allows you to draw on one part of an image using pixels from another part of an image. The best way I can describe it is by showing you first how this works. If I select this stamp tool and I click and draw, I'm going to get this error message that said I could not use the clone stamp because there is no area to clone. So the first thing I need to do is define which part of my drawing to clone. And I can do that by holding Option while clicking. So let's say I brought my cursor to the right side of the screen and I held Option, and you'll notice my cursor changes to a crosshair. If I click here, that's going to set my stamp so that the next thing I draw, wherever I start drawing, is going to have pixels from this area that I just grabbed. So if I were to click here and start brushing, you'll notice the color that's showing up is the same color as the right side of the picture. And on the right side, you have that crosshair again, and that's showing you exactly which pixels I am borrowing and stamping to the left. And so if I were to fill this out and keep drawing it, you'll see this area is basically just a repeat of this right set of trees here. But that's not quite what I want to do. So I'm going to hit Command Z to undo. And I'm going to set my clone stamp down here. So let's start with this middle portion, because this is a nice, easy portion where it's all basically gray. This is the line that I want to cover. And if you go down just like ½ an inch, we've got this stretch of land that's basically the same color as what it should be. So if I select my stamp tool and I hold Option and I click down here, I'm going to bring my stamp cursor over, and what I'm going to do is click and bring my cursor all across this cracked windshield line. Just like that. I'm going to stop it there because things might get a little trickier over here. So here I was able to remove that cracked windshield line, and it's looking pretty good, but there's a few parts of my line where the gray color is a little bit darker than what it actually should be. Most noticeably over here, you'll notice that the actual road is this light, almost pinkish gray, and the line that I stamped is this darker blue-gray. If I zoom in and I use my stamp tool again, this time I'm just going to set my stamp area to here to grab this color. Same thing. I'm going to click and paint and bring those pixels over here and copy them. So that's looking a lot better. A lot of it is the process of repeating. And then once you keep stamping and you notice you're bringing up some pixels that you don't necessarily want, like here's that darker gray that keeps coming up, I'm just going to hit undo and then set a new area. There you go. I'm going to keep doing that and stamp out this area. I'm basically just setting this area, dragging it here, setting a little bit lower, and dragging there. And then over here on the right, same thing. I've got this section, which is actually a little lighter than this area to the left. I'm clicking this darker area and bringing those pixels over. So now that's looking much better. Over here, we've got one other section that I can click and stamp out. And now that I have this where the colors are basically where they need to be, the last step I'm going to do to finish this area is use my blur tool. So this blur tool is this little raindrop. I'm going to click that. And what I can do with this is drag it around, and imagine you were doing a graphite drawing and you used your finger to smudge an area. That's essentially what this blur tool is doing. So some of the parts where I can tell that I've stamped it, I'm just going to blur it a little bit so it's just a little harder to see. And when I'm blurring, I'm going to blur in the direction that the colors are supposed to go. Okay, that's looking better. I'm going to continue this process that I just did, but I'm going to work in areas where the color is the same. So here, I'm bringing back my stamp tool with S, and I'm going to work on just this white portion. I'm going to set my stamp tool here, and I'm going to draw with the direction of the area of color that I'm working in. And again, it's a lot of just setting a new pool of pixels to pull from and then bringing them over. And now that I've got this white section done, I'm going to work on this light gray. Option click here. And bring these gray pixels over. Looks like I could blur that a little bit. It's looking better. So I'm going to keep doing this with all sections of this photograph, trying to go over every part that my cracked windshield line touches. And blurring the area to smooth out some of these inconsistencies. And once you go over every line with the stamp tool, you should have your landscape that no longer has that cracked line. Mine isn't the neatest, but let's see if you can do any better with yours. I think if this photo were to show up on Craigslist, I probably wouldn't think anything of it. Again, once you're done with that, you can go to File, Save As, and then add your name to the end and save it as a JPEG.